and welcome back to part 18 of the Final Fantasy VII Remake, where today, well, we would go start this scene where we go to Sector 7, but of course things are never that easy, as we're about to see.
Yeah! Tifa?
Cloud, you're alive. I thought we'd lost you.
What's going on?
Shh. I'll explain everything later. But now I'm on my way to see Don Corneo. You should head back to 7th Heaven, meet up with the gang.
But...
I'll be fine. You've seen how much ass I can kick?
I have.
Yeah? Yeah!
Oh, no you don't. You're going after her.
She's a big girl. She can handle the likes of him. And worse.
You don't know Corneo. It doesn't matter how strong or smart you think you are. He'll find a way to turn it against you. And where is she going to meet him? A mansion filled with his goons. Come on, aren't you worried what might happen in there? You have to help her. Come on!
It would probably be more accurate to not say welcome to part 18, but instead say welcome to week of Wall Market, and I wish I was kidding when I say that. Tifa, for some strange reason that I kind of just gathered, even as a kid, I just kind of gathered, it's like, oh, it's doing stuff for Avalanche. It's spying on someone or something like that. But either way, she's all dressed up and is heading into Wall Market. How dressed up she is dependent on what option you picked after you did all the side quests in Chapter 3. If you don't do any of them, I think it defaults to that one, the fancy dress. But if you picked either of the other two options, she'll be wearing that instead. So I picked what one I wanted to see the most because, well, that's what I went for. This is part of what I've been going on about the chapters. Now we're here, I can explain what I mean. To get the trophy for seeing all possible outcomes of this scenario, it means you need to do all the side quests of Chapter 3 3 times.
What's your story?
Or twice if you get lucky on not doing it the first time round and just seeing what you get. But the point stands, you're doing Chapter 3 several times, and you have to finish the chapter to kind of lock it in, so you're gonna be there for a while.
So, that's how it is.
But as we go out here, Chocobo Sam is pretty much just going to tell us to do one, giving you a pretty decent idea of what to expect from Wall Market. And I'm not kidding when I say it's going to be the week of Wall Market. This video is just one of, I think it's going to be either 4 or 5. I'm not sure yet, I haven't edited that far. It's certainly going to be more than 3.
I'm not sure that
But it's either going to be 4 videos or 5 videos. Either way, it's taking up the majority of this week. And this part will upload on a Monday, so yeah, it's going to be the week of Wall Market. Get used to it. But it does well. The Wall Market is sort of like one of the more fascinating areas of the game, and it's really well developed. And it's why it takes so long, because there's so many people to talk to, so many little events you can trigger, so many things to find if you look around. A lot of little world building things that you might not expect in the remake, that's here as well that you can find. There's a weapon shop that sells a new weapon for Cloud. You want it. And there's also a new weapon for Aerith you can get here, but that's not until a little later on. Additionally, there's a lot of mini games here. Well, one very, very big one in particular that I want to point out, but there's also a Colosseum that we're going to get access to later on, which I will be showcasing a lot of because the rewards at this stage of the game are very much worth it. There are some Colosseum matches in late game that really don't matter, and so we'll see when we get there whether I do them or not. But all the early ones that are available once we get the Colosseum, I will be doing. And there's also side quests in Wall Market. But before I talk about all that, I want you guys to kind of embrace the atmosphere that is Wall Market for yourself.
Welcome to Wall Market, the pleasure capital of Midgar that's got everything for everybody. Couple, huh? It's all good. Play together, do your own thing, earn a little stretch on the side even. Whatever you're into, we got you. Got a special one-time limited offer.
No, thank you. Come on, Cloud, let's go.
The way they reinvented Wall Market was one of the most pleasant surprises of this game. Genuinely, because I liked how Wall Market was in the original 7, and I was adamant, and everyone kind of was, that Wall Market was one of the biggest examples of stuff that would probably change because it hasn't aged the best. Wall Market by nature is just the seedy, scummy underbelly of Midgar in Final Fantasy VII, and you can imagine in the 1997 original, they were a lot more blunt with it. And I was kind of surprised that although, yeah, the wording of some things and the way they present some things have changed to be a little bit more modern and a little bit more respectful, they kind of keep everything intact. Like, there's a lot of implications. Like, we're in front of one right now of the Love Hotel. Yet you can imagine that was more blatant in the original 7. And you can even go into it. But there's something else I need to talk about, and it's actually something we've already interacted with slightly. The moment you enter Wall Market in the plot, there's going to be a lot of little conversations you can do and a lot of little interactions you can do. And it'll come up saying, like, choices to kind of lean into the chaos of Wall Market or be a bit more push against it. The choices you make will affect what quest line you will be getting later on in this chapter. There are 2 different quest lines in this. One of them that is more you're inclined to get if you're sleazier or lean into the Wall Market nature a bit more, and the other if you're cleaner and go against it a bit more. I go for the cleaner route and thankfully get it, because it does actually affect the last of the 3 characters' 3-piece choices. Because we got Tifa's 3-piece choices, Aerith's choices I said was down to the side quests. The 3rd character is dependent on the quest lines you do in this chapter. And what I mean by this, because there's 3 options and you're probably thinking, well, there's 2 different quest lines. You don't have to do all of them. If you do only 2 of them, you can then go back and wrap up and carry on the plot. But you have to do at least 2. Whether you decide to do the 3rd one will make sure you get a different costume. If you only do 2 of them, you get costume 3, basically. If you do all of quest line 1, you get costume 1. All of quest line 2, you get costume 2. If that makes sense? Like, I hope that does. That's the easiest way I can think to explain it. I'm going to be going for the cleaner questline that isn't like leaning into the Wall Market stuff. Don't get me wrong, the sleazy route is really fucking funny. They really lean on the comedy of it and make it just a really cheeky, charming goof fest. But the costume you get on the other side of it, because I don't mind spoiling it's a costume because, you know, you've seen it's Tifa's costume. The costume you get on the end of it, I don't like as much. I don't think it's as good. And I think that's the point. I think it's supposed to be like the 2nd best costume and not the best. Whilst I want the best, baby. Chadley's here as well for some fucking reason. And he's going to give you new battle intel and a new summon to fight if you've got the battle intel done. Additionally, he's going to give you the 200% stagger intel now. Which is what I've been going on about all game, really. The whole thing with when you've got Tifa, the moment you stagger an enemy, you should be going all in with Tifa on the triangle button to rack up the stagger percentage, Robert. Because if you can get 200, you get stagger effect part 3, which is a necessary evil to get access to a summon fight later on. If you don't do it, you will never get access to the next summon fight after the one we've just got. Which is a shame, because after this one, there's only, I think, 2 left, and both of them are fantastic. But we've got the Fat Chocobo. And yeah, I know, you're probably sitting there going, that's a bit rude. No, if you're not familiar with the Final Fantasy series, Chocobos are split into different species, and a lot of those species have rather blunt names. Like, it'll be the Black Chocobo, the Purple Chocobo, the Red Chocobo, the Fat Chocobo. It's not that it's actually just a Chocobo that's eaten too much and it's making a joke at it. No, it's a species name. It's just what they're called, translated from Japanese. Actually, I think there's a Final Fantasy out there, not that I can tell you it's on my head, that was translated as Huge Chocobo instead. I'm sure there was. Like, not that I can tell you which one it is on the top of my head. It's been a while since I played like the original translation of the earlier Final Fantasies. Speaking of the earlier Final Fantasies, man, I really hope that Pixel Remaster Collection comes to console soon. I really hope when they eventually announce when 6's Pixel Remaster comes out, they announce a console collection. I think they'll do a collection of the 6 together, but it'd still be nice. Anyway, I should actually talk about this boss fight that we're going against, this summon fight, because yeah, we will get that Chocobo as a summon after we do this. And I believe it's the first 2 ATB summon. I think it's the first one that actually requires 2 ATB to use. I might be misremembering and thinking it's the next one, but I'm sure Fat Chocobo is the one. And this fight might surprise you that it can actually be kind of difficult if you're not prepared. And it's entirely because of the Moogle following around. The Fat Chocobo can roll around and move a bit quicker than you might be expecting. But that's not the real reason why this fight becomes a threat. It's that fingers crossed, Kupo, that Mog over there, that Moogle, who's going to be constantly summoning like doppelganger versions of enemies. Not as strong as the actuals, of course. Like they're not. You're going to see like bombs made, and even an enemy we haven't met yet, a Tonberry, which is terrifying that this thing can summon Tonberries. But that's besides the point. Those weaker clone variants, so all their names have like question marks for them, they're the reason why this fight can turn ugly. You have to be wary of them. Not all of them are as big a threat as the next one, but if you're not paying attention, they will stack up on you, and suddenly you'll have way too many threats on you, causing way too many problems. Additionally, I'm going to throw it out there, Aerith's your best friend in this fight. Because of her ranged abilities, she can deal with those minions and try and not get hit by the bouncy bomb. But you can see it, Fat Chocobo is nowhere near the fight it was with Shiva, but then I also fought Shiva alone, whilst it's 2 of us. But the Fat Chocobo is already losing health quite quickly, and I don't think it ever gets to use its special. I don't think I ever let it. Or if it does, like it really doesn't end up doing much. I honestly can't remember. This is still from the same recording session as that was my first one. But I went to town for a good few hours just to get a big session done, so I didn't have to worry too much about falling behind on footage. Because I'm aware that it's been a while since, you know, I was like eons ahead of recording like I was back with Shin Megami Tensei 3 Nocturne. And that will probably change going into next year, because, you know, the big projects I want to do next year are the sort of games where I will want to be far ahead of to make sure I don't miss anything. Because that was the reason why I did Nocturne so far ahead, is to make sure I had all my notes down, made sure I knew what I was doing, and could try and help as much as possible. As this, I get my arse saved a little bit there, because 3 of those bombs on the field, it was starting to become a nightmare. But Shiva, every single summon's final attack is an AoE, so all the bombs get caught in it, and thankfully die as a result. Which also stuns the Fat Chocobo just enough to build up the pressure to get me pretty close to a stagger. Oh, there was a Cactuar in there. There was just a genuine Cactuar hidden somewhere in there. That was good timing. Cactuars are very rare enemies across the series that have a habit of either dropping a shit ton of money or dropping a shit ton of experience. Or in games that have job/ability points, dropping a lot of that instead. But either way, they are always worthy kills and worthy for grinding. I think the only time I've ever gone out of my way to grind them is 6 and 8. Like, those 2 are the Final Fantasies where I will go out of my way to grind on them for a bit when they're available to do so. I say that, 8's not a hard game at all. It's just helpful to grind out spells in 8. Whilst in 6, it's because it's in an area where the only other enemy also drops a really good amount of experience. So you might as well grind there, because in both instances you're doing alright. Obviously, I've been talking about the classic games. I've mentioned it several times before, that my big plan for this year was always SMT, Neptunia Reverse, and FF7 Remake. And so I'm now on the last game of that plan, even though it's a little later in 2021 than I'd have liked. We are here. But my plan for next year, my big 3 for next year, firstly, one of them's not as big. It's not an RPG. It's Evil Within 2, because I've been going on about that fucking game since it came out like 3 or 4 years ago, whichever one it was. I've been constantly going on about, oh yeah, I'll cover it at some point. I really like it. It's a far better game than the original. I'll definitely cover it at some point, and then just never fucking have. So I'm making it a point of, no, I am going to do it next year. I want to do a classic Final Fantasy, assuming the Pixel Collection does come to console next year, which I think it will, even though they did that whole we will if there's enough demand sort of thing, implying that they originally had no plan for it. I genuinely think being tone deaf is one thing, being flat out stupid is another. They might be tone deaf to what people want and not thinking like console players want the pixel remaster, but I'd like to think they're not stupid enough to ignore the high demand that's come from it. So I think it will come around either with the 7 remaster, the 6 pixel remaster, which is optimistic, but I doubt it. I think how they worded it with, oh, there's enough demand, means that the scheduling of each pixel remaster was predetermined, not the console versions of it. So I think it will be a little after, but if it is a little after, I'm hoping before, like, I don't know, like before middle of next year sort of thing, so it can slot in nicely for my schedule. Because if I finish Evil Within too early and there's no sign of the pixel remaster, I'll probably do a couple smaller things to see if the pixel remaster does come around, because the last one of the lot is gonna be Tales of Arise. Tales of Arise is my big one for next year, and I know it's gonna end up being another one of those, it ends up not being as big as I expect it to be, like every single Let's Play I've ever done in terms of how many parts it will be. But I do plan on 100%ing Tales of Arise, even doing the fucking fishing, which I've actually never done, but that's part of the reason why I'm gonna do it, is because I'm gonna do it on the Let's Play, because it's like the only trophy I'm missing for completion, and I wish I was kidding. I'm only missing one trophy for the Platinum, and it's catch one of each fish. I will try and do that in the Let's Play, but it's gonna be a full 100% run, and if you've ever played a Tales of game, you know how big of a task that is. That is ridiculously gargantuan. My biggest hope, and I doubt it, is that they will do like an enhanced port of Tales of Berseria on PS5. Just because they can use that as an excuse to finally get rid of the fucking recording blocks that are still on that game. Because there is no greater pleasure I would love to give than being able to do a full Let's Play of one of my all-time favourite games, Tales of Berseria. And yeah, I don't get me wrong, I absolutely love Tales of Arise, and I've said before I think it's the best game on PS5 right now, and I don't say that lightly. I genuinely think it's a phenomenal game, and it's easily my game of the year. But Berseria still is just a little bit higher than it in terms of comparing the series, in my opinion, just because I love the premise of Berseria just that little bit more. I love the characters just that little bit more, even though the Arise cast really grew on me, and I'll get more into that when we get to it, because although it's been out a couple months, it's still fresh enough that I don't want to talk details on it until we're actually in the Let's Play, you know? But I genuinely adore that cast and adore its characters, adore its world. I prefer Berseria's gameplay, that's a no-brainer for me. Berseria I felt just had more options. I like what they do with Arise to kind of modernise things and make it a bit more snappy, but it just feels like you have less options, and it feels like you're less incentivized, as Johnny runs past us, to alternate between party members as much. Like, you can still do it, the game doesn't really tell you how, or help you figure it out how. You have to kind of figure it out yourself a little bit. Like, you have to like hold down the shoulder button and then press the D-pad, instead of holding down the shoulder button and moving the stick to change your target. Like, it's a little awkward, but I still appreciate it and for what it is, and I still really enjoy Arise's combat, even if it takes a little to get going, and the game as a whole takes a little to get going, in my opinion. I still fucking love it, it's just Berseria's better. I'm sorry. I genuinely prefer Berseria as a whole. Berseria has some of my favourite characters of all time in it. It was never going to compete. But when you come over to Johnny, here's a choice. If you agree with Johnny, you're leaning sleazier, because Johnny is a sleazebag. But if you disagree with him, well, yeah, you're being cleaner. So I go out of my way to come over to disagree with him, because I'm trying to get as many, like, points of favour, so to speak, with the cleaner path to ensure I get it. Because I really wanted to make sure I got it. Because the amount of times, like, before we got a better understanding of how it worked, because, like I said, the Ultimania came out and explained a lot more of it in clearer detail, a lot of people just kind of winged it and hoped they figured it out, and sometimes would get unlucky. If you come back here, though, here's an interesting little tidbit of, like, world building you get. This honey girl here you can talk to.
Aren't you that?
She's the teacher from the Leaf House. This is what she goes and do in the evening. She spends the daytime looking after the kids. She spends the night being able to sing and dance away over here at the Honeybee Inn.
Well, if you must know,
And I like that level, just a little bit more world building. It's like if you do all the side quests, you'll recognize this woman because you spend more time with her. If you didn't, you might not. I think you see her, and I think you get a brief chat, but it's nothing proper, so you'd be forgiven for not realizing it's her. But if you've done all the side quests, you absolutely spot her and go, hang on a minute. But we can't enter the Honeybee Inn just yet. And you're going to see, like, look how far we are into this video already, and we haven't really done much to advance the plot. I've just been wandering around. Additionally, I wanted to mention it earlier, but I was talking about something else when the footage got to that point. You saw that I put on the refocus materia. The reason why I did that is because there is a battle quest or a battle intel quest that involves using it twice. I have an awful habit of equipping it, and then when I'm going to do a limit break, spam clicking, so I don't go for refocus. I just do the limit break when I'm going to do that challenge. So it's going to take me a little while to get that one done, but I will get it done eventually. In fact, the next actual boss fight we fight in the game, I finish it doing a cross/slash limit break instead of refocusing to get a point on the thing, just because I was like, oh, it's got like 2 HP left. Let's make it a flashy finish, instead of actually just taking the refocus so I can work towards that battle intel sooner. But there's a chapter later on that straight up has 2 relatively long and drawn out boss fights in it. And I don't really like either of them, but that's besides the point. So I plan, when I eventually do the recording for that section, to try and get them there. The keyword is plan, because God knows if I will. I might just end up spam clicking again. But because I've put that on for Cloud, something had to give. So for at least a little while, he's not got deadly dodge, because that materia is maxed out anyway. But I will be re-equipping it once I get the chance, because deadly dodge is just such a nice combat tool to have. In the same vein, there's shops around, but you can also, if you've got the stagger thing, get it off Chadley. You can get parry now, which is different from deadly dodge. It's when you block, if you press guard when you block, you'll do like a unique roll to your side. And if an enemy attacks you during it, they will bounce off you because you will, well, parry them. So you can use that to like get away from attacks and get out of sticky situations. I honestly don't use it too much. I'm going to make a point of trying to use it more in this Let's Play, because I tend to just do better standard dodging or going for the counter with Cloud. But oh well. But here's our new weapon for Cloud. The legendary Hard Edge, which surprised me when I saw it. When I saw that the Hard Edge was in Remake Part 1, I was like, that's an amazing weapon that's usually not in Midgar. That's later on. But it gives you, in my opinion, the joint best ability in the game for Cloud. There's 2 abilities that I think when Cloud gets them are god tier. This is the first one. Hard Edge gives you Infinity's End, which, as you can see from the animation, well, I skipped away from it there. He does this huge charge up swing and then slams down, making it like a far stronger alternative of like the Braver. You know, he does the big slam down with that. It costs 2 ATB instead of 1, but it's got an AoE blast range around it, and its actual damage if it smacks is far higher than the Braver. It is an amazing battle ender, more often than you'll realise. The moment you stagger an enemy, if they're going to stay staggered for a while, because some recover quite quick, if they're going to be staggered for a while, get that Infinity's Edge off on them and watch a hole appear in their health. It will rip the shred out of them. I love landing. It's one of the most satisfying skills in the game to just land. Even if it's not a staggered enemy. If you just get a good position and a good timing and land a clean hit with that motherfucker, it feels good. And all the particle effects, because of the little AoE splash that it gets from it and everything else, just add to it. It's a really well designed visual move, as well as being a really heavy hitting smack. It's a satisfying skill to use, and it's why I love it. But when we max it out and get Infinity's End, you're gonna actually start seeing me swap around weapons, because each weapon does have its own merits and its own buffs and minuses. So when you've got all the skills for them, don't just stick to the most recent one you've got. Find the one that suits your playstyle the most. And for me, the Buster Sword kind of becomes the best weapon in the game. The starting sword for Cloud, the Buster Sword, genuinely, other than being the canonical sword that he uses throughout the game and throughout the story, genuinely, when upgraded, becomes better than all the other swords. Once you've like go into hard mode and you've got all the skills and you're just working out your materia and doing like your final little upgrades with the odd upgrade points you get from the art books, I guarantee you the Buster Sword will become your main weapon of choice, because its stats are just higher than everything else. Like, the Iron Blade might have, like, a little bit extra attack, but it won't have a better on anything else over the Buster Sword. Like, the Buster Sword will be a generalized better at everything kind of thing. The bat is worthless. The bat is genuinely terrible. And this is, to be fair, this is a really strong weapon as well, but it's more magic focus than physical focus. It does have a link slot though, so if you want to have like an elemental attack on Cloud, well, there you go. As we enter Don Corneo's mansion, or manor, or whatever you want to call it, at the back here, to try and see if we can get more information on Tifa.
Not so fast, buddy. Back it up. Got no need for pretty boys here.
We're looking for someone.
Let me guess. First time in Wall Market.
Yeah? So?
So people can't just walk through the Don's front door. Especially men.
How about me then? Can I go inside?
Maybe, but you're gonna wish you didn't.
You know Leslie? She's kinda cute. Homely, but cute.
Excuse you?
Kinda cute's not gonna cut it.
Come on, can't you help us out?
Do you have any idea what you're getting yourself into?
Aerith.
Seriously, Les, she's not half bad. With a little work, I bet she'd clean up real nice.
Cloud, requesting permission to kill.
Denied.
If you're really sure you want to join an audition, then you're gonna need to get official approval.
And who can give us that?
The trio. The only ones in town who are considered authorities on Corneo's particular tastes. First, there's Chocobo Sam. And then there's Madam M over at the massage parlor. Last but not least, there's the Honeybee Inn's Andrea Rodea. They're an eccentric bunch, to put it mildly. And you should know they don't recommend just any girl stupid enough to come knocking.
Duly noted. Thanks for the info. We'll be back soon.
Next time, we're going to try and find a way about getting past Leslie here, but until then, you take care now. Peace.